remember when Donald Trump said we'd get tired of the winning? I'm not tired yet. I wonder if Senator Bill Hagerty's tired yet. He joins the Matt Murphy Show on Super Talk. It's always good to catch up with our good senator. Hello, Senator Hagerty. How are you?
Well, I'm doing great, Matt, and I can tell you I'm certainly not tired of winning. I'm loving this every day of the week, and I'm watching my colleagues' heads explode. You know, the Democrat Party is withering away. I think they've got a 31% approval rating. They're lost at sea, and President Trump has just taken, he's taken the place by storm here. And as soon as they've got their pearl clutching and they're whining about one program that he's addressing, he's out two more. They just can't keep up with him, and it's just been a delight to be up here pushing forward his nominees and supporting his efforts to turn America back around.
Well, clearly this DOJ process has, the liberals have their hair on fire with regard to it. I've been doing this a long time, Senator, and I know you've been following politics even during your life as a businessman for a long time as well, and now serving the great state of Tennessee and really the United States of America by extension. In that service, you've probably thought the same, that I longed for a day where we really saw real tangible results in terms of shrinking the size of government, considering our burdensome debt, $37 trillion just about. Now we're truly seeing the fruit of that labor on the part of the Trump administration, and it's just a sight to behold. Your thoughts on DOJ and the progress so far, less than a month into the Trump presidency?
Well, certainly, Matt, but I won't miss this opportunity to compliment you with your listeners today. You, of all the people I speak with, and I talk with journalists across the country, you have such a great perspective. Your experience in Washington, your insight here. I always love our conversations because you absolutely understand how this place works. And with respect to how it works, it's being turned on its head. This DOJ initiative is completely common sense. Elon Musk, one of the most innovative entrepreneurs of our time, is somebody that President Trump turned to say, look, I'd like for you to deploy your skills, your entrepreneurial and innovative perspective to see if you can tackle the federal government, which were at a company, it'd be the largest company in the world. Elon Musk has gone in and made major transformational changes in other corporations. You think about Twitter. He went in and completely turned it around, did it with a fraction of the staff. You think about what he's accomplished with SpaceX. You think about these launches that he's been able to do. I went with Elon to a launch recently. He told me that he went from just bare ground to the point that he's built all of that infrastructure there and is able to catch a rocket on the way back down in 5 years. Do you think NASA could do that? Do you think the Chinese or the Russians could do that? Absolutely not. So the fact that President Trump has turned to someone like Elon, I think, just underscores the fact he wants the best and the brightest people helping him, and they are going to town, as they like to say,
absolutely.
In Washington.
Well, but Senator, you also understand that the executive branch cannot do it on their own. I know that you recently announced fixing exemptions for networks choosing to enable illegal migration, or the FENCE Act, because you want to hold some of these NGOs accountable through legislative process in terms of what they have done to assist what is obviously illegal acts in the United States of America. Talk a little about that.
That's absolutely right, man. I mean, I think most of us would assume that a non-governmental organization is a charity, that it would be doing good works, etc. What these NGOs are doing, and the corruption, I think, runs very deep. I actually went through the budget process in one of these government shutdown fights. We actually got to a point that we were about to halt the government over the NGOs last year. Chuck Schumer fought me until 1:30 in the morning not to allow me to go to the floor, but I did. He had to allow it at the end, and I was able to put a vote to the floor to every Democrat. Say, look, I want us to stop funding these non-governmental organizations that are flying illegal aliens into the United States. Flying these people, these illegals coming into the country, these deportation flights should be what we're doing, not importation flights. 350,000 came into our country last year, facilitated by these NGOs. I wanted to stop funding these NGOs and their activities doing this. And every single Democrat voted to continue to fund these NGOs. They couldn't stand the thought of not allowing this type of thing to happen. I wanted to defund it. They wanted to continue funding it. Now I put legislation in place that says we're going to lift the tax-exempt status of these non-governmental organizations that are participating in things like flying people in here illegally, giving them maps and showing them how to evade Homeland Security and ICE. This should not be happening in America, and certainly tax exemption is a privilege, not a right, and the government shouldn't be both funding them and also providing them with tax-exempt status. It's ridiculous. So I'm joining the Trump administration. I can do this legislatively as they put pressure on these NGOs and review all of their mandates, and I hope that we defund every last one of them.
Some outstanding cabinet nominations by the President of the United States, and obviously you are intimately involved in that process, being a United States Senator. The Senator just voted to confirm National Intelligence Officer, Director, I should say, Tulsi Gabbard. Just talk to me about that vote and your confidence in Tulsi Gabbard being able to assist the President with intelligence matters.
You know, a lot of people have been questioning the nominees that President Trump is putting forward because he's putting forward people who are disruptors. Mm-hmm. Tulsi Gabbard certainly fits into that category. Kash Patel will fit into that category when he comes forward. He's putting people that are disruptors in place because the American public voted to disrupt the status quo. If you think about it, Matt, 75% of the American population before Election Day said that this country was on the wrong track. That's where we were in November. 75% of Americans said we were on the wrong track. Whether they voted for Donald Trump or not, they made their opinion known. And Donald Trump is responding to that by putting people in place that are going to help him turn this place around, turn it on its ear in some respects. Now, I've had, numerous interviews with these Sunday morning talk shows and as my team calls it, the adversarial media, as they scream and moan and complain about, people that would be transformative, that would change the status quo. You take someone like Kash Patel coming in to be the FBI director. Kash knows where the bodies are buried. He was one of the most vocal proponents of actually dealing with the FBI when they put forward the whole Russiagate thing. It's all been proven to be a fraud. The weaponization of our law enforcement agencies, the weaponization of every aspect of the federal government is something that has to come to a full stop. The American public want it, and President Trump is putting forward nominees that are going to be able to help deliver that. Whether it's Tulsi Gabbard, Kash Patel, Pam Bondi, or others, I'm looking forward to seeing the change that they're going to deliver. It's much needed.
Senator Bill Hagerty joining us on the Matt Murphy Show on Super Talk. By the way, Senator, you're going to lose your invite if you keep challenging Margaret Brennan with receipts on Face the Nation like you did last Sunday. I don't think she's accustomed to. I don't know. You had the receipts, and I think you left her with nothing else to say. I appreciate you representing the state of Tennessee in that way, and really the conservative perspective across the spectrum. She brought she tried to bring the fire with USAID, and it seems as if they think it has to be all or nothing when it comes to foreign sources of aid. You understand that I think you would agree with me that there are programs that are good, proper, necessary, and ultimately benefit the United States of America. They seem to think that we're throwing all of this overboard. Obviously, Marco Rubio under the State Department can handle some of these programs without the ridiculous waste of money that is obviously going on at USAID.
Well, if you think about it, and you're right. That was my interview with Face the Nation, and I think she was just almost hysterical when I pushed back on her and reminded her that there is a tremendous amount of waste that's going on at USAID. What I think these interviewers don't know is that I actually served in President Trump's administration. I had a USAID operation at my embassy in Tokyo, one of the largest embassies. It's the third largest economy in the world, Japan. And I had a large operation there. But if you think about what they're wasting their money on, LGBTQ programs in Serbia, a DEI musical in Ireland. Can you believe that, Matt? Electronic vehicles for Vietnam, transgender opera in Colombia. You got a transgender comic book that they were funding in Peru. You just can't make this sort of stuff up. Sex changes in LGBT activism in Guatemala. Do you think the Guatemalans want this stuff? Certainly the American taxpayers don't want to be spending their money on it. Yet that's what's been coming out of USAID. And I think some of the most egregious things, and I think we've all suffered from this, is they sent millions of dollars to the Echo Health Alliance. This was the outfit that was funding the Wuhan lab research that was, very likely the genesis of the COVID pandemic. So obviously the organization is out of control. I'm with you, Matt. There are definitely programs that probably advance America's interest and do the humanitarian things that we hope to do as American citizens abroad. But I'll say this, we need to build that from the bottom up. And by President Trump putting a halt on all of this and having each one of these programs come and justify themselves, I think that is entirely appropriate. And he immediately provided exemptions for certain medical emergencies and getting medicines to people, that sort of thing. But Marco Rubio is going to do a great job of bringing this in, reeling it in, and dealing with yet another big chunk of overhead that probably doesn't need to exist. So doing away with USAID, folding it into the State Department, that's good business, particularly when you got as you said, close to a $37 trillion budget deficit. We need to be looking for ways to save money at every turn. And certainly I think Americans look at some of the ridiculous things that USAID has wasted taxpayer money on and say, this has got to come to an end.
Only a couple of moments left, or maybe 2 or 3 minutes left, whatever time you're able to give us, Senator. But I want to focus on foreign policy for just a moment, because obviously the president just today announced that he had spoken to President Vladimir Putin, indicating that he believes the time is now to end this war. He also spoke with Ukrainian President Zelensky regarding that, and all of the power and movement of the executive branch of government is moving toward a conclusion, successful. What would be success in your mind, Senator, in terms of winding down this war and stopping the killing?
Well, I tell you, certainly the killing and the devastation in Ukraine has been absolutely awful, and my heart goes out to the Ukrainian people. We need to bring it to an end. President Trump is looking at this. I've talked to him numerous times, Matt. He's thinking about this first and foremost from a humanitarian aspect, and to stop the carnage in Ukraine is one of his primary goals. Now, there's a lot of talk in Washington. You have a lot of armchair quarterbacks here that are happy to send our money and to send other people into war. And President Trump, that's not his bent. That's not his focus. He doesn't hesitate to use American power when it's necessary, but he doesn't want to see these types of endless wars going on and the types of carnage that have occurred in Ukraine. So, with respect to a successful outcome, I think what he wants to do is see this come to an end as quickly as possible. He wants to see the economy rebuilt in Ukraine. I think he's got great ideas about how that can happen. Russia needs to stop the aggression, but we also need to be listening to the things that have agitated Russia that came from the last administration. Whether it's talk about putting Ukraine into NATO, things of that nature that frankly are inflammatory and counter to what our policy has been for many, many decades. We need to think about looking at a balance there. And again, I'm all for pushing Vladimir Putin back. One of the best ways to do that is to get back into the energy business, to bring the cost of energy down around the world, and certainly to stop allowing Russia to export as much as they can. Both Russia and Iran have been at full blast exporting because the Biden administration waged war on U.S. energy and made that opening possible. That will come to an end, and that's going to bring a lot of, I think, sobriety to the conversations that are going to happen between President Putin and President Trump.
The other foreign policy piece is obviously the Hamas attack against Israel and the resulting response by Israel. And the President of the United States, freaked a lot of our liberal friends out when he said we need to remove the Palestinians from that area in order to get it rebuilt, take ownership of that action. But if once those screaming voices die down, it just makes common sense that you cannot possibly provide an atmosphere of rebuilding and provide a safe, secure location for Palestinians or anyone to live unless you get them out of there first. And I frankly think it was the beginning of a negotiation where you're now seeing nations around that part of the world, the Saudis, the Egyptians, saying, hold on a second, Mr. President, we can come to you with our own plan of action. I think this was designed to initiate plans to get them in place to help ultimately not only the security of the Israelis, obviously, but also the future of the Palestinian people. What say you, Senator?
Matt, you're as always, you're right on the money. Bingo on that one. I think you've absolutely nailed it. Steve Witkoff is our special envoy, a good friend of mine. President Trump has sent Steve in to deal with this. There's live ordnance on the ground, Matt. The Gaza Strip is uninhabitable right now. It's going to have a complete turnaround, a complete makeover. Steve told me, Steve is a billionaire real estate developer, highly successful. He said, Bill, it's going to take 3 years just to clean the soil and get the debris out and make the place even safe. He said, we're going to have to go in and x-ray the foundations of these buildings, really understand. You think about Hamas is tunneled underneath all of this, frankly, using probably USAID funds to support all the tunneling. But if you think about what's got to happen, it's going to be a major investment to get this back toward habitability. In the meantime, something has to happen. That's why President Trump is putting pressure on the situation. He thinks outside the box, and I think it's exactly as you laid it out. The neighboring countries are going to step up, come up with a plan to help, and we're going to see, a much better result than we have over decades of this, this intolerable situation that's been occurring.
And finally, and I know we're running out of time here, Senator, but finally, you made the announcement yesterday, and a lot of applause around the state of Tennessee when we heard this, that it was your intention to run again for United States Senate in 2026. Now, a lot of folks have been talking to me, and there's been a lot of chatter about the possibility of you maybe running for governor of the state of Tennessee. We love you that much, Bill. Was part of your announcement just kind of to let the folks of Tennessee know what your plans were, what your direction is moving forward? Because I'm certain you've heard so many people in the state of Tennessee talk to you about these various places of public service.
No, I appreciate that, Matt, and I appreciate so many of my friends who reached out and encouraged me to look. They've said they were supportive of whatever I might decide to do next, whether it be in the governorship or in the United States Senate. But here's where I am on it, Matt. I worked my heart out for 4 years to get to the point where we are today, where we have control of the White House again, where we have a majority in the United States Senate and in the House of Representatives. The next 4 years, I believe, Matt, can be the most transformative that anybody in politics could experience in their lifetime. And I've worked closely with President Trump as a member of his last administration. I worked very closely with him to help him get back into position again. And I worked very closely with many of my colleagues to get them into a position so that with this majority, we can make a real difference for America. I love the state of Tennessee. There's no greater honor than to represent it. And I'm looking forward to representing Tennessee and also doing everything I can to help our great nation over the course of the next several years, both the next 4 years with President Trump and beyond.
Senator, I know it's self-serving for me to say this, but I appreciate you so much. I see you everywhere. I see you on Fox Business, on Fox News. You go into the lion's den, as they say, on more of these liberal networks. You're not afraid to do that, but you're never remiss in coming back home and talking to the people of the state of Tennessee on our network and on others. And we so appreciate that availability that you give us. Thank you so much, Senator.
Thank you, Matt. All the best.